Hello and welcome to another episode of the Startup Operator Roundup. I'm Roshan Karyappa.
And I'm Gunjan Saha, and together we break down the biggest headlines from India's growing startup ecosystem. If this is the first time you're tuning into the channel, then please consider subscribing because we talk everything startup. And if you're a regular listener, then please consider liking and sharing this video with your friends. In this week's roundup, we'll be talking about the recently launched Indus Valley Report 2024. This is a highlight report by Bloom Ventures, where they present their views on how the India market is evolving. Last week, Ola also did the public release of Krutim's chatbot, and that has had mixed reactions from the audience. So we'll try to get a hang of what's happening. Another big headline was Google delisting multiple apps from its app store. That includes the Bharat Matrimony app suite, Kuku FM, Naukri.com, and many others. That has caused a lot of stir in the ecosystem, causing the government to also step into this discussion. We'll be talking more about that. In other news, Elon Musk has decided to sue Sam Altman and OpenAI for apparent breach in contracts. They are saying OpenAI is now focusing more on profitability instead of building AI for general good. We'll take a look at what the arguments being made are and what basis does this case hold. Lastly, Reliance and Disney have sealed a merger deal for the India media. Combined, they'll become one of the largest media houses in the country. We'll discuss what implications does this have for the larger ecosystem. So a lot of exciting news coming up in this week's discussion. So stay tuned. Before we begin, last week had other headlines as well. A lot of the global dignitaries and the world's most influential people are in Jamnagar right now. For those who don't know, Jamnagar got a temporary international airport made just to fly these dignitaries in. And well, Rihanna is there along with other people, but what are you excited about?
Yeah, I mean, so it's a pre-wedding celebration, beat that, right? So there's a whole 3-month spectacle around this. And the world's richest or perhaps the second or third richest man is getting his son married in grand fashion and also makes a case for India as a wedding destination as well, right? So fantastic stuff. Happy to see, Mark Zuckerberg, Rihanna, all of these folks here, for Mukesh Bhai's son's wedding. And have you heard Anant Ambani speak? I mean, seems like a very sincere guy, man.
I mean, so I was having this conversation with some of my friends, right? The way Anant Ambani is speaking now, is it really that's how billionaire children are brought up, or is that more of a media spectacle?
Look, I mean, I would say that the guy is really authentic. Of course, he's had some media training, and of course, there's a whole lot of PR and whatnot, but comes across as a genuine guy, right? And props to him, especially in the circumstances that he has grown up in, and he's not had it easy. He's had a host of health issues and so on. So, it's good. I mean, there is some entertainment for the next couple of months on that front. Right. And but in other news, I would say the consumption data is out and India has eliminated extreme poverty. Now, that's a massive, massive thing. Right. Extreme poverty is defined as, $2 a day or something to that effect, around that. Right. And the data shows that, growth is up. And surprisingly, also inequality or the Gini coefficient, as they measure it, has narrowed as well, both in rural and urban India. So this is a survey that's conducted where they ask people about their spending habits, right? I mean, how much have they spent on perishables like fruits and vegetables? How much have they spent on durables? How much have they spent on other items of interest, right? And based on that, they analyze the wealth and poverty basically, and growth and those kind of things. And I was really heartened to see that for sure. Right. Yeah.
Another big news stemming out from there was the Q3 GDP growth rate
growth
was announced, and it's 8.4.
Well.
Experts had claimed that it will be somewhere on the range of 6.6% quarter on quarter, but it's 8.4. And well, my stocks portfolio looked really good on that day.
I think people again will go back and forth about the numbers and say that, maybe, it's not really 8.4 and so on and so forth. But look, the momentum is surely there, right? And I think it'll become quite apparent in the next quarter, 2 quarters. And I've always said, right, I mean, India, it's very difficult to fudge at our scale, right? I mean, it's very apparent because the anecdotes will not, will be so glaringly different that it's very difficult at our scale, I would say, right? So not to say that that's not a possibility, but in any case, I feel like when I compare the data with anecdotes, I think momentum is certainly back, right? And we're growing at a healthy pace as well. And this is the opinion of a bunch of folks who are way more smarter than I am. So yeah, so that's what I think. Yeah.
Okay. Well, apart from the Ambani wedding and the GDP reports, I think India's last week some of the headlines were also saying that India is really strengthening its position to become a global leader for semiconductors. And Tata and few other companies, even TSMC and the Tata partnership, they announced big plans to set up fabricators around the country.
Yeah. No, that's amazing, right? So 3 fabs have been approved by the government, 2 by Tata and 1 by this other company, I'm not sure, right? And 2 in Gujarat, 1 in Assam. This is fantastic news because semiconductors are so integral, right? There are first line of defense, I would say, for everything. And given the whole geopolitical situation right now, where Taiwan is at a flashpoint, and something, God forbid, may happen in the next few years, we definitely need to be Atmanirbhar on that front, for sure, right? So yeah, this is a great start, I would say. People will still say that we are still dependent on China and all of those things, but yeah, it's a start.
Takes time to
Absolutely takes time, right? If you look at software, for example, I mean, we didn't get to SaaS just like that, right? I mean, it took 30 years to get to where SaaS is right now. We're building world-class products and so on. So it's going to take time, but it's a very, very useful start, I would say. Yeah. So a lot of good things have happened in the week or so.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So I think there's a good point to talk about the Indus Valley report. Indus Valley report is an annual report that Bloom Ventures publishes, which kind of shares their perspectives on how India is evolving, how the Indian startup ecosystem is evolving. And I really like how they came up with the name Indus Valley report. Unlike Silicon Valley, Indus Valley is not limited to one geographical area. Talk about India as a whole. They talk about the startups in Bangalore and the satellite towns of Noida and Gurgaon, then Chennai, Hyderabad. And they have some really interesting insights as well. The report states that India's per capita GDP right now is $2,612, which is slightly lower than Bangladesh, and that ranks us 140th in the list. Consumption spends still hold the highest share when related to GDP, which is now 60% for India versus 38% for China. It also mentions of the number of Indians that pay tax. The report says that only 0.3% of Indians contribute to 80% of the total tax collected. Now, this is direct tax. I'm not talking about the indirect business taxes. For consumption, I know we had discussed that discretionary spending in India is rising, and the report says that discretionary spending has increased from 13% to 21% from 2000 to 2022.
So on all of the points that you mentioned, right, these are things that we've been saying as well, right? That hey, discretionary spending is rising because as your GDP per capita rises by some basis points, I mean, the discretionary spend goes up not linearly but exponentially.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, excellent stuff.
This is another demarcation that they make is by categorizing the income people into various levels. There are three levels: is India 1, India 2, and India 3. India 1 has around 12 crore people in terms of population, and their per capita income is around $15,000 or 12.45 lakhs. And this also forms the biggest market for startups to target to. India 2 is roughly 30 crores in terms of population, and the per capita income is $3,000. And India 3 is around 100 crores in terms of population, and per capita is around $1,000. That's also interesting because we have been talking about a growing middle class, but it's still that top 1% or 2% of the population that is really responsible for the spending.
So the income disparity in India is huge, right? I mean, if you go to parts of UP and Bihar, the GDP per capita is like almost like sub-Saharan Africa types, and whereas, I mean, what you mentioned, like parts of Bangalore, parts of Bombay, parts of, Hyderabad or whatever are way up than that, right? And so I think So the Bloom team has made the point earlier as well that you can't look at India as a whole. You have to kind of look at it as different parts.
Right. So another key aspect this report talks about is how funding levels in India ecosystem has now dropped to around pre-2017 levels, right? There's a sharp decline from the peak, from the bull run we witnessed in 2019-2020. And the report also highlights the slowdown in late stage funding and what are the various options that emerges for startups to raise other funds apart from VCs. So one of the channels the report talks about is that if you're a profitable startup or have a decent growth rate, you should look for an IPO in the smaller market segments, not necessarily in the NSE and BSE. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, for sure. And, I would have hoped that bill discounting and debt would be a lot more popular in these markets as well. I mean, we should perhaps look at the numbers and check if that is indeed the case, right? But yeah, but although, I mean, interest rates have risen, right? But basically, I mean, alternate sources of funding here, because I think 2017 was this post-consumer internet wave in India. Right, where things had quietened down. A bunch of these hyperlocal startups had gone bust. I remember the types of local OA and stuff, right? And this was also pre the SaaS optimism also, right? So yeah, it does feel like that kind of, I would say, and let's hope that time passes and all of these folks who've raised like tons of money to fund Indian startups, even Asian startups, I would say, start deploying capital. But the great thing is that, look, every founder we've had in the last 3, 4, 5, 6 months, I would say, has a plan for profitability, and a good number of them are already profitable.
Yeah, I think the past 2 years, right? I mean, profitability and sustainability became like buzzwords, right, in the ecosystem. But now, I mean, that is the one key factor apart from compliance, which we're seeing come in recently now. Sustainability and profitability is one of the key metrics that founders have to optimize for. It's not just showing the growth projections and stuff. Another, but contrary to what you just mentioned, right? One segment has seen immense growth over this past few years is the rise of D2C brands, right? I think India is becoming a strong hub for what Bloom calls the digital native brands. They have been growing steadily, and they are not just selling to India; they're selling to the world. Because online there is no borders, right? So I think this will give rise to a lot of creative and unique sales playbooks and GTM playbooks.
Yeah, more than a few of these brands appeared on Shark Tank as well, right? I mean, most common product category, I feel, right? And a lot of them are doing a few crores, close to $1 million.
Urban Monkey.
Yeah, a lot of them. I mean, I was seeing this face yoga brand also, which is doing 4-5 crores in revenue. Pretty awesome, actually, and all of these are profitable, netting 15-20% EBITDA, which is awesome, right? As a brand. So D2C is a massive shift for sure. At least I think what is happening is there's a playbook that's emerging to go from 0 to about a 10 crore revenue, and then that could be like pure native digital Instagram, on the website, marketplaces and so on, and then 10 to 100 crores via online and offline retail as well. And then beyond 100 crores, we've had Mama Earth, we've had Nykaa, right? So there's all these playbooks emerging. So I feel like India is brand starved. If you look at the number of brands that are, more than 1,000 crores in revenue, not in valuation, in revenue, right? I think you will find very few of them, and especially the new ones, I would say. So yeah, that's open, very, very open for disruption, because also the demographic is changing, right? I mean, as the report indicates as well. So yeah, let's see.
The urban class is no more the largest consumer class, right? There's a lot of discretionary spending increase in the rural India as well. So I think there's a brand new market opening up.
Even post-COVID also, the rural economy recovered faster than the urban economy, right? So yeah.
Awesome. A few months back, Sam Altman was in India, and I think it was the editor of NDTV who asked the question that, do you think India can ever have its own chat GPT? To which Sam Altman really said that, well, I don't think so, but you can definitely go try and building it, but it will be nothing as close. It's a futile effort. But last week, Bhavesh Agrawal introduced Krutim and described it as a major breakthrough in customer service. Quote unquote, he said, Krutim marks the dawn of a new era in the AI computing stack of our nation. We will aim to innovate alongside the world and define future paradigms. But does this really live up to the hype? We logged into the public beta release and tried to put in some queries. I gave in a translation. Well, it did not score a 10 on 10. But a lot of other folks have been praising it for number one, the wide variety of languages that it's available in. It offers extensive user experience ranging from having in-depth information, conversations, and variety of topics. And I think one of the key differences between Krutim and ChatGPT is that Krutim has available to the latest data. So it's very current affairs aware. But there are also a lot of reports that came up saying that when users prompted the bot in Assamese, it confused Assamese with Bengali and any other Indo-Aryan language because the scripts are kind of similar. So there could be some issues in the way the model was trained.
Did you ask it what is the best electric scooter in India?
Did you?
So, it had varying answers, right? Someone said that it said Aether, right? And someone else said, no, it says Ola S100 or 150 or whatever that was.
But if it really answered Ola S1, then do you think that would be because of the bias?
Well, we don't know. See, the first version
Because that's pretty big. I mean, think about it. If that is actually true.
There will be biases, I feel, right? And look, I mean, people are dunking on the results and whatnot, right? I mean, it is going to be rough around the edges. It's the first version of it, right? But look, I mean, at least we have an Indian context to it, right? Because, ChatGPT and Gemini and the others are like, hey, let's face it, I mean, completely woke and driven from the West, right? I mean, one of these folks, tried... asking about Prime Minister Modi, and it said, one of the few results was that, Prime Minister Modi is a fascist, right? And they asked about Xi Jinping, who's literally like a dictator, and it said no such thing, right?
Yeah.
So let's not be, under this impression that, all this tech is completely neutral, right? If anything, the last 2 or 3 years should prove otherwise, right? Especially post Twitter files and so on. So I am actually happy that we have an indigenous platform. I mean, yeah, sure, it's not going to be perfect at this point of time. Give it a few, iterations, versions, and hopefully it'll be priced reasonably also, right? And look, this is from a man who is, right now
Indian Elon Musk.
Yeah, exactly, right. I mean, he's running a ride-hailing company. He is running an electric scooter company.
He's
right?
building a battery factory.
Yeah, and he's
Now
doing
he's gonna-
this, right? So, yeah, let's give him a break.
Yeah. But also, last week, Google came under heavy firing for the responses that Gemini generated, right? Including the response to Prime Minister Modi and showing some prominent historical icons in as people of color. But that was last week. This is a new week and Google is under fresh firing. Google had initiated a process of delisting multiple Indian applications from App Store. This included popular matrimony apps that were widely used across the country, Kuku FM, Naukri.com, and even Sridhar Vembu sir took to Twitter to express his concerns at what's happening in India and what Google is doing. This is a classic example of monopoly abuse. With the dominant position of Android in India, it is important that the regulators and courts get involved to level the playing field. And that's exactly what happened. Our Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnav, in an interview, said that India is very clear, our policy is very clear, our startups will get the protection that they need. And he has already spoken with Google. Few hours after this meeting, all the apps were back online, the Play Store. But what do you think is going to happen here? We have heard a lot of founders complain about the practices by Google, especially, taking down apps without giving any appropriate reason. This really hampers their business.
Yeah, it's really terrible. I mean, I've just been seeing, Bisu, for example, of Kuku FM, Vinay of Stage, and, Sanjeev Bikhchandani of the Naukri group, right? And Anupam of Shadi.com and so on and so forth, right? I mean, it's kind of affected so many of these apps. A few of these apps were back on the store as pure consumption apps, right? Which means that they weren't actually billing in-app, right? But yeah, man, I mean, I think it's reaching a breaking point because Google is definitely negotiating with developers, right? I mean, I'm damn sure Spotify is not paying them, the 30% that they're insisting, for sure, right? And 30% is a lot. I mean, we're talking about a time when take rates are like almost going down to near zero, right? And we have the kind of fantastic payment infrastructure in India. It's a bloody joke to, pay 30% to someone on that, right? I really hope that, Google and Apple do something about this, right? Because they're just inviting, all of the Competition Council of India and so on and so forth to get involved. And these folks, well, I mean, in India, it's not, lobbying is not as sophisticated as the US, right? So they're going to lose out because India is famous for banning stuff, right? We banned TikTok, we banned a host of other things. One fine day you will just see an order that bans something else, right? And then people will be scrambling for stuff, right? So I mean, if I was Google, I'd really be like quaking in the boots, right? And God knows they've had a ton of issues, right? People have been calling for Sundar Pichai to leave as well, which would be kind of sad, right? Because look, when you think of Sundar Pichai, I mean, the guy really built Chrome, and he made Google what it was in the what do they call, naughties or OOs, right? I mean, seriously, he literally built a huge size of Google's business, right? Fantastic product manager, leader, and everything. But somehow, I mean, the last 3, 4, 5 years, I mean, he seems to have like floundered, right? And it happens, man. I mean, when you're managing a multi-$100 billion company, right? Every misstep is magnified 10,000 times, right? I just hope people realize. Incidentally, Sergey Brin was spotted in the Googleplex as well, right? He was at a Gemini hackathon or something of that sort. There were some
videos
interesting
of
people.
him apologizing for the whole Gemini fiasco that went down.
Yeah.
And that's kind of shocking. That imagine your co-founder of Google has to step in to fix things.
Well, I mean, so that's what they say, right? You could be a CEO at one point of time, but you're always a founder, there were some interesting people addressing all of this woke stuff, So I won't say more. I mean, you guys can check out the videos of, some of these folks. They were very interesting for sure. But yeah, and more than a couple of people have suggested Arvind Srinivas of Perplexity AI to step in as a CEO right now. I don't know. Let's see. Let's see what happens. But I really think that the government has been very proactive, right? In the sense
that's
that
a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. They've stepped in and they've called an end to this nonsense. But I hope that they work with these big tech platforms to resolve these issues, because it's a recurring thing. It's an ongoing thing. And look, I mean, the Google payment is one aspect of things, but just the arbitrary nature of things, right? I mean, the app economy is $1 trillion plus right now. Should two companies be at the helm of it? Should they be the gatekeepers? I'm not very sure. So there should be multiple things. I mean, there should be a democratization of that. We should see many other app ecosystems like the Indus OS that we discussed and so on. All of this and more has to happen, I would say.
Okay. So who do you think right now is probably the best leader / CEO / founder?
No two ways about it, right?
Who?
Elon Bhai.
Well, then you're not the only one thinking. Even Balaji Srinivasan took to Twitter and went on to say that Elon Musk is the greatest founder of all time. He says that...
Not just that. I would say, I mean, he's the greatest human being in the current era, I feel.
Yeah.
Think about okay, I mean, you finished that. I mean, I couldn't stop myself. Yeah.
No, go on.
No, you think about the impact that the person has had, right? I would say maybe electric vehicles would have been delayed by 10 or 15 years, but for Elon, right? Which is significant, right? You think about how much of, whatever impact it's had on sustainability, climate change, and whatever, right? Then you think about the progress that we made on space tech, right?
Yeah.
You think about, what is that, Starlink, Neuralink, and Solar City. And all of these, man, and Twitter, right? I mean, people don't count Twitter among one of Elon's, like, maybe top two, top three things. I feel like that is the biggest impact that he's had over the last couple of years. Just simply buying Twitter, and at 44 billion, I think Twitter was just like a charity case, right? I don't think it makes any financial sense for him to have got it. And in fact, I mean, he's had even more scrutiny, right? You look at how the Biden government has screwed him, right, with all of the kind of litigation and so on and so forth, canceling contracts, and they've gone after him like personally, right? And even after all of that, the man takes time out to like troll people on Twitter, right? I mean, what a guy, man! What a guy! Seriously, like I think by sheer impact, I don't think any human being has had that kind of impact in our lifetime, I would say.
So you're right? I mean, that guy has, I don't know, probably thought of things and just decided to, hey, you know what, we should be building this. Is thinking of
He's executing at the speed of thought.
yeah, yeah. Think of us an extraterrestrial human population is building in Mars, right? You think of building underground tunnels to travel. It has the Boring Company. He's building the Cybertruck. He's now, I think, working on a car that does 0 to 100 in less than a second.
Wow.
Right, and he claims that's not even the most exciting part.
Yeah, he built a flamethrower.
Yeah, right. That guy. But in all seriousness, he has. I think what Elon did really well is like while everyone's building on the software space and stuff like that, he really went on to took the hardware route, and that is what Balaji Srinivasan is actually talking about. He has built SpaceX, he has built Tesla, he's now co-founded Neuralink, the Boring Company, and he's also part of OpenAI. Right, so
Not
he has
co-founded OpenAI. I mean, we'll talk about that, but yeah.
Okay, so it's rightly right. Elon's accomplishments have earned him great respect within the tech industry, and well, we are talking about him, so I guess that's a good thing. We only talk about good stuff.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I will say that there are these stalwarts, right? I mean, you think of maybe Bob Noyce of Intel, you think of Steve Jobs, and Larry Ellison, perhaps, right? Mark Benioff, maybe. But then, I mean, Elon is just like heads and shoulders above all of these folks, I would say, right?
I think if all of these people were in a class, Elon would be the backbencher.
The rancho of the class.
Yeah. But hey, talking about OpenAI, right? Elon has filed a lawsuit against OpenAI and Sam Altman, claiming that the company is in breach of its mission, which is to build a general purpose AI for the benefit of mankind. He's saying that the company is now focusing more on making profits. Well, I do not know what the basis for this case is, but what do you think? How is this going to pan out?
So Elon gave the first 100 million or so to OpenAI, right? Was part of the founding team along with Sam Altman, and initially OpenAI was set up as a non-profit organization, but sometime after it kind of made a pivot for reasons they claim, that for-profits are more effective and so on and so forth, and obviously Microsoft came in with that multi-billion-dollar investment, right? Look, I think Elon has a case, obviously, right? When you set up a non-profit, I mean, it's different, right? I mean, you can't just convert
But I
to
don't
a
think
for-profit.
it's not non-profit. I think it was meant to be a not-for-profit.
Yeah.
Right, and they had a trust established that kind of.
I think it's probably the same thing. I don't know, you guys can correct us. But yeah, it is a not-for-profit, and you can't just like halfway change that to a for-profit organization, transfer all the IP from this not-for-profit to this organization, start making billions, right? And I think that fundamental point holds. I think where philosophically Elon and Sam kind of differ is that Elon wants this stuff to be open sourced, right? Whereas obviously OpenAI has its own private closed source kind of a thing, right? But of course Elon has Grok as well, which is private. So yeah, I mean, it's just a battle of these stalwarts, I would say, right? And Vinod Khosla has gotten himself involved somehow, someday,
Yeah.
right?
There's a full Twitter feud going on.
Yeah,
They're exchanging
there's a
really nasty tweets.
spicy feud going on Twitter between Elon and Vinod and Sam Altman, and a bunch of others, right? So Vinod Khosla tweeted that Elon should have gotten in early, and then someone told him that, hey, look, Elon was literally the first guy who gave that funding and everything, and then Vinod has said that. Yeah, he got in early, but he should have stayed, or something to that effect, right? You guys should go check out that Twitter thread and the responses.
Just check out Vinod Khosla's Twitter timeline.
It's
It's
awesome.
really interesting.
I mean,
now.
he anyway is like a very, very entertaining tweeter, I would say. Mr. Khosla doesn't hold back. Obviously he's a very strong personality as well. So it's just awesome that we get to see this in public.
But now that Sam Altman has been really being caught up with this lawsuit, one of the startups that he's backing, Humane, they are in talks with Indian telecom operators to launch AI PIN in India. This AI PIN is a device that attaches to clothing and facilitates communication with an AI chatbot using your voice and laser ink technology. It projects on your hands or wherever, and you can interact with those.
We all saw the demo. I mean, there was so much of flack for that demo. I thought it was okay, actually. I mean, but people said that it was like really pedantic and boring and stuff like that. But yeah, the Humane AI PIN, right? I mean, seems like a fantastic product. I mean,
What do you think about its use cases? How will it make its
look,
mark in
I
India?
feel like there's this eternal search for the next form factor, right? I mean, what is it? After laptops, we had mobiles, and then what? Has there been
Vision
a
Pro.
device that has taken over at that scale? I don't know. Now we have the Vision Pro, obviously, which is another experiment, right? But what else? The watch, of course, it is successful, but to the extent that it's a computing device, I don't think so, right? I mean, it's more of a kind of a wearable, like a health indicator as such. So could it be something like the Humane AI PIN? I don't know, right? But we'll have to fail forward. A bunch of these folks are going to develop stuff. I mean, people are going to dunk on them, and then at some point of time, it's going to reach a scale of maturity, and we'll have a standard, right? I'm sure that the first few laptops that were produced were absolute shit. I mean, I've still used a Toshiba laptop from 16 years ago, right? I mean, I mean, you could kill someone with that, basically. It was one of those laptops that weighed, I think, maybe 3.5 kilos or something of that sort, maybe more, I think, right? And if you accidentally drop it on someone,
heat would be like you don't need a heater in the room.
Yeah, man. I mean, it used to fume, right? So yeah.
Yeah. But this has really interesting use cases, right? I mean, people are saying this will find big adoption in the field of medical applications. And this is a great way to complement the capabilities of your smartphone, right? It's just another way in which you can integrate tech into your day-to-day lives. And that's having a cool, like, you don't have a brooch anymore, you have an AI pin.
Yeah. With all of this integrating, I don't know if like the fundamental human experience is going to change, I mean, we talk about this neural link, the chip in the brain and stuff like that. I don't know. I just really hope and pray that in 100 years' time, humans will still be humans, but I'm not very optimistic about that.
We'll find out. Okay, let's take a break from what's happening in the West and come back to India. In India, Reliance and Disney have announced a joint venture of worth $8.5 billion to create a media powerhouse in the country. Mukesh Ambani will be the senior partner of this newly formed entity. The partnership can hold significant market share in advertising and streaming, which is around 40 to 45%, and this could lead to better profitability and reduced content costs for the new entity. Disney will merge its India operations with Viacom18, part of Reliance, and the new venture will be 63% owned by Reliance and Viacom18 and 37% by Disney. Despite Disney's initial success in India, Reliance's acquisition of Indian Premier League cricket rights led to a loss of subscribers for Disney. The new deal signifies Disney's continued commitment, at least to the Indian market. The merged entity is expected to capture a significant market share. This includes 35% of total TV viewership, 40% of the total revenue market for broadcasters, which includes ad sales and affiliate fees, and 45% of premium video on demand streaming market. If you were an Amazon or a Z for that matter, how would you react to this?
Well, look, it's a very hard business to run for sure, right? And this consolidation is something that we've been talking about for a while as well. So I'm sure. I mean, they must have seen this coming. It's a massive win for Jio, I would say. Right. I'm just like excited about the opportunity Jio has to build everything full stack. If you look at how Reliance business has grown, they're famous for this backward integration, right? I mean, so don't be so sure, so surprised if Reliance starts owning some of Google and Amazon's business on the data center side also, right?
Wow, that'll be.
So everything from application to infrastructure to everything in between, right? So yeah, I really don't know how they execute moves at this level, right? I mean, I'd love to be a fly on the wall and like, listen to some of the stuff that's being said.
Clearly, you didn't get an invite to the Ambani wedding.
Yeah, well, I'm missing a few zeros in my bank account. But yeah, I mean, I would love to see some of this corporate shit talk go down in these boardrooms and whatnot.
So I read this tweet. Okay, the shirt which Mark Zuckerberg is wearing on day 2.
Yeah,
The yellow shirt that's apparently going for 1.6 lakhs. One shirt.
Yeah, and I saw that video of Mark noticing Anand's watch as well, right? Which is supposedly 15 crores or something. So, yeah, man, it's a different world, I tell you.
This reminds me of the movies, some movie scene from way back, where families landing in the airport, all the cab wallas are like white people are serving in restaurants.
I saw that as well. Yeah.
You think we're soon moving
it's
into
a good switch?
That soon, 2026?
May happen, I think. Not in 2026 for sure. Who knows, 50, 60 years from now, One thing is, India is going to become a lot more prominent. For sure.
It's already becoming.
For sure. I mean, I think we're just seeing the early signs of that. I think if we grow at this level and if we have a stable government at the center for another 10 years, really, the Prime Minister often talks about this Amrit Kal, right?
Yeah.
And it's not all rhetoric flourish, right? I mean, of course, there's some of that. But also, I mean, some amazing times ahead, touch wood, hopefully.
Awesome. Before we wrap up this episode, here are the notable fundraisers from the week. Zeno Health, which is a medicine delivery platform, raised $25 million from Stick Investment and Lightbox. Capillary Technologies, which is one of the more successful enterprise SaaS startups, raised $95 million as part of its Series D fundraise.
Wow.
And this was led by a group of investors. Luggage brand Mokobora raised 100 crore rupees or $12 million from Peak 15 partners, Source VC and Sama Capital. I think the most interesting one is Capillary Technologies, right? Especially given the environment, the funding landscape we are in. For them to raise $95 million as part of a Series D, that's really commendable.
Significant for sure, right? And Capillary was in shambles when COVID hit because they had such a huge exposure to the retail industry, and obviously, retail went to zero pretty much overnight, right? To come back from there to having this kind of money and hopefully listing at some point of time is a fabulous achievement. Like props to Anish, who's the founder, and the rest of the leadership team and board, right? So absolutely stunning stuff, I would say, right? And Mokobara is Mokobara. Yeah, interesting brand. I mean, their backpacks have gone viral, and after seeing it on Instagram maybe like 20 times, I still have resisted getting one for myself, right? But they also have an interesting brand partnership with Indigo Airlines also, right? Yeah, man, awesome. I mean, I just love brands that punch way above their weight, right? This is one of them, and I hope that they'll scale to become the next
Samsonite.
Yeah, Samsonite, American Tourister, or whatever, right? I mean, I really would love to see one Indian brand go completely global. Yeah.
Tata?
Huh?
Tata is global.
Of course, but Tata is like, 100 plus years old. I'm talking about, one new age D2C brand that, we can probably tell in 10 years' time that, we were around when we
Let's
saw
start
the first few.
Let's start a D2C brand and let's take it global.
Yeah.
How difficult can it be?
Let's crowdsource some ideas. You guys have some ideas?
Okay.
Chalo, podcast khatam karte hain.
All right, folks. So that's all for this week. Fantastic conversation. I think this is one of the more fluid conversations we have had.
We're missing our producer today, so that may have something to do with it.
All right, folks. So that's it from our side. Hope you have a fantastic weekend. Okay, and do all the good stuff. Like, share, comment on this video. And if you really enjoyed this video, then please do leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. That really goes a long way for other people to discover our content.
Yeah, and a bunch of you have been like commenting saying that we're such an underrated channel and that we definitely deserve more views and engagement and everything. Thank you so much. I really feel it too. Right, just like keep doing all of the good stuff like Gunjan mentioned, and we'll get there. We'll get there with your support, and you can say that you were one of the first few 10,000 subscribers, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when we reach 1 million or whatever. So
Actually, if you're leaving us a review, drop us a message. We'll send you a t-shirt. We are having some new t-shirts underway.
he's going to send you a t-shirt. Anyway, guys, thanks so much, and we'll be back on another episode soon, hopefully with our producer also. Chalo, bye.
Bye-bye.